Hey everyone, it's Nightlight9, and in this video we're going over my top 5 suggestions for quality of life improvements in Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. How did this get started? Well, I woke up this morning and my phone was suggesting an article on Reddit, and the article on Reddit was a quality of life suggestion that had, about 35 upvotes and quite a bit of comments on it, and I thought, this could be something. So the user who started the thread, they had a suggestion where basically they wanted to take all of the different components that we use to uncap weapons and make them just one resource instead of having 3 separate ones. That's not something that I particularly think needs to happen, but it was still very valuable for getting a conversation started on, quality of life improvements. And so I'm making this list based on some of the things that I saw in that thread, along with some things that I myself would want to add in. And these are the 5 things that we'll be looking at. 1, a cube breakdown slider. 2, a quantity cap check for exchange shops. 3, a co-op lobby separation for autos and manuals. 4, a gacha rate indicator. And 5, we'll be talking all about leveling and EXP quality of life changes. So for the first one, I want to talk about adding a slider bar for breaking down cubes, and this is what I mean. Let's say you're going in here and you're enhancing weapons. And typically this comes up when you're enhancing something right around the middle ranges. And so if we look here, and okay, we want to go from 50, right? It takes a bunch of these, and we don't have quite enough of these mid-grade electrums. So what we would normally do is we just come over here to the exchange shop and, weapon enhancement, and then we would start breaking these down. However, sometimes you need quite a bit, right? You're quite a bit away from them, and so you have to do this over and over again. And when you click here, you can see you're only able to do 2 at a time, and you have to keep clicking confirm on this. Then if you were actually needing these, you now have to go to this one and keep clicking confirm over and over again. It just seems like there's no reason there couldn't just be a slider right here where you just say, hey, this is how many I want, you slide it over and you hit create and it makes them. I think that would be a much easier system, and I think most people would agree that that should just be here. So that's quality of life improvement number 1. And some of these improvements, I will say, are pretty simple to implement. These first 2 are going to be very simple, but we will get to kind of more complicated ones, whether it's complicated because of the actual coding that would be involved or because of maybe the logical way or the theoretical way we would want to fix these problems. So just kind of pointing that out. So number 2 is a quantity cap check for items in the exchange shop. So let's say, you're going to your events and you're in Happy New Year. Okay, we want to exchange some stuff. We'll come over here and, hey, I'm looking at this. Okay, so I want to do these gacha tickets and I just want to spend everything I have because I'm going to go hard on getting these tickets until they're cleared out. The fact that this slider lets me go past the amount that I have, it's kind of annoying. Now, on here, because there's only 10 of the item, it's not that bad. I've went ahead and spent a few things, and I'll show you, because when you get to items that there's a lot more of, it becomes more of a pain. So this, okay, what if I had, let's say, even less of these? I have to now manually start going through this to make sure that it adds up to exactly how many I need. That just doesn't seem like there's a point to making players do that. They could literally just put in a check that says, okay, we'll let the slider go all the way up to exactly how many they have, and that's that. I think that would be a very small, very easy, but also very nice change to have in the game. The next one we're going to go through is what I'm going to call the co-op lobby separation for autoers and manualers. Now, here's the thing, is I know that people have very strong opinions on this, because when we're doing co-op content, one of the things that we're constantly having to worry about is if the content is difficult, you can't just auto your way through it unless you're a mega whale, right? So most players don't understand this. So a lot of times, especially when you get, crash events or higher level, event runs, you need to really be manualing or semi on your characters, because things need to happen at a certain time. You need to make sure that you're paying attention to do your limits or your summons, etc. And there is an overwhelming number of players, unfortunately, who don't understand this. They just auto every single co-op they get into, and it is extremely frustrating when you're running into this over and over again. On the other side, though, I get that there are some things, and we'll go back to this event, for example, that you're going to have to grind so much of for example, this stage 7. You have to grind this so much to get enough stuff to clear out this shop that there's no way anybody wants to sit there and have to click through it all the time. You're going to want to just be able to auto it and have to just kind of click, let's go again, every time you get a chance to. So I don't want to take that away from people. But what I think would work here to fix this problem, or at least my suggestion, and I would love to hear yours in the comments, is to have anytime you go into a co-op lobby, right here, for example, on this screen, there could be like another box that says auto or manual, right? Or maybe just auto and you click it on or off. And if you had it on, then you will be matched up with other people who are, wanting to be with people who can auto the fight. But if you had it off, it will only pair you with other players who are agreeing basically that there's not going to be an option to turn auto on. And then when you enter into the fight, you can't click the button in the top right hand corner that says auto. And I figure that shouldn't be too hard because they're able to take away the speed boost, so probably could also take away the ability to auto. And I think this would make people a lot happier. Sure, there may be some longer wait times here and there, but I think that that's a fine trade-off compared to the alternative where you're constantly getting paired up with people and you're not able to clear the battle. And along with this, I know this is kind of making this third option like more of a two-part option, but I think it would also be really nice if you could queue up for a role. So that way you're not having to see, for example, some of the harder stuff, it needs healers. And, a lot of times you get 3 people, they come in, they're all DPS. Now, sometimes somebody will, change into the healer or whatever role is necessary. But sometimes, a lot of the times, they won't. So if you could just say, like, I want to play healer, and then it pairs people up accordingly, I think that would be pretty nice too. Moving on, our fourth one is I think that there needs to be a gacha rate indicator. Now, why do I say this? Because probably the most negative feelings that I see in this game, the most negative feedback that I get is people that are sour from their draws, right? People that feel like the game isn't fair, they've seen other people get certain kinds of luck and then they have a certain, luck on their own that's not very good. They, get terrible draws on a banner. I get it. I've been there. I've been on both sides of that fence. You look at these odds and you're like, there is just no way I'm getting a 7.5% drop rate on my, 5-star rarity stuff. That's just not how, I'm just terribly unlucky. Well, I was playing another game recently. It's called Brown Dust 2. And I want to take a moment and show you something that game has that blew my mind. This is the user interface for Brown Dust 2, which, by the way, is a pretty awesome game. Something I would definitely consider checking out. It had a little bit too much going on for me. I felt like if I would have played from the beginning, it would have been better. But either way, if you go into the draw section, okay, this is where you would do all of your draws, and you can see down here the different options. But what I'm mostly wanting to point out is up here in this top corner, this draw record button. If you click that in this game, it shows you the draws you've done, and then you can go over here where it says rate record. And it shows you every single draw that you've done in the game. It shows you, here's the stuff that you're drawing for, right? The rarity levels. Here is the rate that the game advertises you can get. And here's how many of those you've gotten. Then this is the percentage you actually have. So for example, on this one that I've done the most draws on, a pretty standard draw on the pickup banners. That's all I've really drawn on in this game. You can see, right, there's a 1.5% chance to get, ultimately they always do like 3% to get a 5-star, right? That, like, you can see that here, that's what the average is typically at. So here, when a pickup happens, right, half of that percentage is to get the specific pickup costume. And you can see, yeah, I'm still a little bit lower than the 3% over 127 draws, but I'm like only running half of what I should be on the pickup. Now, it's only 127 draws. Over time, you could see that number maybe even out, but it would give you an exact idea of how quote-unquote fair the game was being. Are your draws really unlucky, or are you just perceiving it to be that way? I just think this is a really, really nice touch that Brown Dust 2 has added to this game, and you can see they have all different types of draws. So every kind of draw that they have in this game, they've got a whole list for it, and it'll show you how many times you've drawn, the advertised rate, what your actual rate is, and how it's gone. Because I'm willing to bet at the end of the day that by the time you've done, 300 to 500 draws in a game, those rates are going to be really, really close to accurate they're going to be really, really close to matching the advertised rate. But that would make people at least be able to look at something and say, you know what? You're right. Right? I know it feels unlucky right now because there are ebbs and flows. There are highs and lows when it comes to, any probability or statistic based thing, but they usually even out over time. And on to my fifth and final topic. And this one I think is probably the most hot button type of issue in this game is leveling. So, we go in here and the training quests, that's what we have. Obviously, you can get experience from just about everything, but this is the most common way to do it. And boy, oh boy, is it a grind to level characters in this game. If you look at my characters, I've almost got everybody to 65. This is my last team of 3 that isn't to 65. And if you look at my stamina tonics, I can tell you there's a reason that my gift thing wasn't lit up. I do not have any spare ones sitting in there because it takes a ton of time to level characters. And I don't think it's that people are really too worried about the resources it takes, it's the time. Nobody wants to sit there for hours on end to level a character for, 10 levels, right? Or even 5 levels. It takes a while. I would say a couple hours at minimum. That's not why people are playing the game. That's not fun. And I think that the developers should be trying to minimize things that aren't fun and maximize aspects of the game that are fun. So here's kind of my take on this. One, it would be nice if they just put a auto repeat function, right? Kind of like, okay, so auto clickers are technically against terms of service, and you would have to use, an emulator or have a third-party program on your mobile device to use one. Okay, so we don't use those. So we're just stuck manually sitting there and repeating and then letting it auto. We're not doing anything anyway. Why not just have a repeat function so I can set up, Steam or whatever it is and just click go, and it'll go, as long as you want. Maybe even could have it to where it'll even use your stamina tonics if you want it to. That would be nice. Still takes a lot of time, but at least you don't have to be giving the game your direct attention during that entire time period. The next thing they could do, they could add experience potions. XP potions would be so nice, right? So basically, as the way I would envision that working is as you're, playing, training quests, for example, and, you're looking at, okay, here we go, character XP7, and what are the rewards? All right, well, mostly it's just some gil. There's really nothing else. Well, they could add experience potions that go in there. And sure, they don't have to be huge, but they add up over time. So you're leveling a party of 3, right? And by the time you get them 5 levels just from running the XP quests over and over, well, now I've got enough potions that maybe I could level one other character up 5 levels with the amount of potions that have dropped. Or maybe just a couple levels. I don't know. Just something that we could save up, especially for when like a new character like young Sephiroth or Yuffie arrived. We could just use those potions that we've been saving if we chose to level them up instantly and not have to go through this, hours long grind. Because let's be honest, when Yuffie drops, to get her to 65, I mean, you're looking at an insane amount of time. Yes, there's going to be a lot of stamina tonics, but the amount of time alone is absurd. Then the last suggestion that I have here is when you're in this screen, one of the ways they could fix this is this ×3 right down here. Is there any reason that we can't make the ×3 a ×5? Or a slider that goes up to ×10? I think that would be a good idea. It could scale based on player level or some other sort of level like a lot of other gachas do. However they want to do it, I think times 3 is great in the beginning, but we're still running on the same multiplayer for, running missions that we were on day 1 of the game dropping. It just seems like they could do that better. Now, obviously, then there's a problem with the shop pass that gives you, what, 25 essentially, or 33% more rewards because it gives you the amount like you're running it 4 times instead of 3. Let's be honest, that pass kind of sucks. And what they really should do is they should make that slider go up to 5 or 10 times, probably 10. And then in the shop, that pass, I don't even care if you made it more money. It should just double the rewards that you get. Even if that pass costs twice as much money, that would actually be a pass that people would probably find worth it, rather than, yeah, we'll make it like you ran it 1 extra time. Instead of 3, it's 4. I'll be honest, I was a sucker. I paid for that in the beginning, but no more, and that's why. So those are my 5 tips for the game, or my 5 suggestions for quality of life improvement. I'd love to know what you thought of these suggestions, if there's any of them that you particularly liked, or if there's some you disagreed with. And I would also really like to hear if you have other ideas for quality of life improvements that I would include in a future video. As always, thank you all very much for your support. Subscribe for future content if you're not already, and thank you very much for watching.